I've been homesteading full-time on my family land here for 6 months now, and I'm going to take you on a tour today and show you my progress. For those of you who are new here or don't know my story, my name is Evan. I live in northern Wisconsin. I moved onto this land, which was our family land from all the way back in 1918. It was our original family homestead, and my family was able to hold on to it through this last century, and I moved back here about 6 months ago, and I've been turning it back into our family homestead. So the first stop on our tour here is my garden. This was a lawn on April 1st. Today marks the start of our garden construction. And this took a long time. It was a labor of love, but I'm really glad that I was able to get this built up to where it is. I have a lot of raised beds in here. I took a lot of food out of here this year, especially with it being year one and how far behind the curve I was with our short growing season and having to build all this. Still a long way to go in here. I'm planning on expanding this more because I want to grow all of my own food. But for year one, I'm very happy with where this garden's at. I was able to utilize a lot of the ash trees we felled to clear space for this garden, So a lot of these raised beds, a lot of these trellises, and this hula culture that I built, all those materials came from the trees that had to go to clear the space for this garden. Our growing season's winding down. We've had our first frost already, but we still have some crops going strong in here. I have a lot of romaine that we've been eating on for a while now, so I have a lot left in here. I have another batch coming up in my cold frames along with some arugula. Everything's looking really good. I have a lot of carrots in these cold frames as well, and it's getting to the point now where I'm flipping these cold frames over at night because it's frosting more often than not. It's getting to the point where it's all about season extension here, and that's a really big focus of my channel. I want to really see how far I can extend my short growing season into our fall and winter months. Another thing we built in the garden was this greenhouse that I'm standing in currently. We built it about half this size originally and then added on about a month ago now, and we have some carrots growing in here, and we put some radishes in the gaps that didn't germinate. This isn't completely sealed, so we still have some work to do. We have to get out here and cover up some of the gaps that are in here, but it's still getting you, I think, like 10 degrees compared to like outside versus what it is in here, and that makes a big difference up here, and we should be able to get carrots pretty deep into the winter. We set it up, we built this right, we built it for the long haul. It's all cedar, it's all off the ground, and it's all rigid plastic, so this thing should last a long time, and I'm excited to see how far into the colder months we can get food out of here. So after all my raised beds back here in the greenhouse, the next thing I want to show you is my tomatoes. So we have this section that's Romas and the section that is indeterminate tomatoes, and the indeterminate tomatoes are on this cattle panel trellis we made out of logs. These all were ash trees 6 months ago, and we felled the trees, clear space, and we used them to build as much as we could in here. And this trellis is my personal favorite thing that we built. No screws, no nails, nothing holding this together. All these logs are just put into the ground, and then these logs are run in between them, and the cattle panels are hung off of them. It withstood a tornado that we had, and it was 100+ mph winds. So if it could withstand a wind that blew over hundreds of trees on our land, then I think it could withstand pretty much anything that is going to be thrown its way. Yeah, this and my greenhouse should be like in this middle of this garden for many years to come, fingers crossed. But my Roma section here, these did really well. They were just really far behind. We planted them from seed, and then the first batch of seed didn't even germinate, so we were like a week behind there. And this was like the last thing we built in the garden this year. So we still got a lot of Romas though, and we got some canned. I have like 30 something quarts canned of tomatoes. Most of them are Romas, so still a pretty good year there, especially with how much time went into actually building all this and getting them set up. So I'm really happy with where they're at, and then next year this whole process will be so much smoother, not having to build all of it. Also, it's starting to get cold up here, so we're getting frost pretty much every night. So I'm making my way through, constantly picking out all the Romas that are ready, and it's getting near the end where I'm gonna have to take them all off, whether they're ready or not, and then get this all cleaned up. And what I showed you so far was about half of the fenced off area that I have for the garden, and I have wood chips covering this whole thing. That's another thing that took a long time, but I'm really glad that we did this year. But in the second half of the area, there's no wood chips down here, but we have a hugelkultur and a couple more raised beds. And then this one in the back's our giant mega bed is what we call it. It's 4 huge logs of trees put together, and we were gonna make them 2 separate beds, but we decided to throw them all together, and it's pretty cool. But my hugelkultur, I talked about it earlier. This was just from the branches we had laying around from the trees that we cut down. We were trying to use every part of the tree and we had uses for like all the big logs and all the smaller branches. We turned into trellises and raised beds and all that, but the smaller sticks on every part of the branches, every like tops of the trees and all that, we didn't really have a use for, so we piled them up. I made a hookah culture out of it. My cousin came over, threw some soil on top. We're letting it break down this year, and next year, maybe the year after, we're gonna start planting it seriously. I put some huge sunflowers on here though. These things are really cool. They're mammoth sunflowers, and I don't know, they tower over me. I mean, in this, for reference, in this video I'm about to show you, I'm 6'7", and these things have a good 2 feet on me. But yeah, this whole place, this whole garden was just lawn 6 months ago. Cleared the trees off, fenced it off, spread wood chips, built all these raised beds, greenhouses, trellises, everything. It's crazy how far we've come in a short amount of time, and I'm really excited to see what this place can look like in a couple years. I have a lot of stuff built and ready to go for the future. I'm still expanding this place. I'm probably gonna move the fence out a little bit. We'll see, but I really want to keep making raised beds, keep expanding everything, and I'm gonna need more food because I have an ultimate end goal of being completely sustainable out here. So I need to produce a lot more food than what I did this year, but next year I should be able to produce a lot more because I won't be building as much, or at least have this built where I just have to plant and kind of maintain it, and I should be getting huge harvests there. But I'm also going to keep expanding this way and get this all completed, filled with raised beds. I'm gonna build another potato mound, lots of plans, but it's just crazy how far we've come in a short amount of time and how many things we've actually put together out here and how much food we could be growing in the future. One thing I wanted to mention quick is this area I'm standing on right now. It used to be where we had a wood pile, and the wood was from trees that got blown over from a tornado a couple of years ago, or a storm release. I'm not sure if it was a tornado, but we had them milled up and they were sitting out here drying. We just moved the wood pile back behind our barn now that it's finished, and we have this area all cleared out now, but we actually have plans to build a greenhouse right here. We're gonna be trying to get this done this year. I'm gonna be starting construction on this pretty much as soon as possible. I wanna get everything dug out and leveled while the ground's still thawed. So this should be coming out this year. So we should be having another greenhouse built, and that should be our last one, at least for a while. I guess never say never, but the plans for this, I don't really want to give away too much right now, but the plans on this, they're gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited. We've kind of built 4 different greenhouses now, and this is kind of like the ultimate build. I'm gonna be getting to work on this probably tomorrow, getting it all dug out, and we're gonna start the construction in the next couple days, so stay tuned. So I'm in my chicken run now. I have my little pet Buff Orpington rooster with me, and this chicken run along with my garden was just complete lawn or woods 6 months ago. In that time we built a chicken coop, we built a composting system, a cattle paddle greenhouse, cold frames inside the greenhouse, fenced off this entire run, got the geese their own house. Yeah, and we have almost 30 birds in here. This was our first introduction to livestock of any kind, and I think it's going pretty well. All the chickens seem happy. They kind of get a big space to run around in all the time. Also, one more thing before I forget, we connected our run to our orchard. We had this area we had everything kind of sectioned off, but the chickens would get out and they would run into this area anyway, so we just decided to fence it off, connect it to the orchard. We put a little gate on there, so whenever we want the chickens in the orchard, we kind of just open the gate and let them forage in there, eat all the bugs. We're gonna start taking advantage of that even more now that it's getting a little colder out. This chicken run's come a long way in a very short amount of time. I know I've been out here for 6 months, but we didn't start building in here until 3 months ago, I think, somewhere in there, and we built everything in here in that time and got all these birds out here. In my cattle panel greenhouse that my brother and I built, we put some cold frames inside of this greenhouse and we got them all planted. We have thermometers in here and the other greenhouse I showed you, the A-frame in the garden, and we're gonna be keeping track of the temperatures, the highs and the lows, and really documenting how far into the winter we can get food in here. The rest of the space in this cattle panel greenhouse, especially now that it's getting colder out, is going to be used as like a composting system / feeding area for my chickens in the winter. I get the local grocery store food scraps and I'm gonna pile them in here starting pretty soon now that it's getting colder out. Pile leaves in here and let the chickens go through here, especially when they're still on the ground, and have a good warm place for them to go, forage for some of their food, build some compost for us, which hopefully, you know, heats the place up a little bit, and then we can get even more produce out of the cold frames. So I showed you the garden and the chicken area. So now I'm moving on into our food forest. So the garden and chicken area were built from scratch this year. There was just lawn or woods, and then we cleared the space and built it all this year, the past 6 months, or in the chicken run's case, the past 3-4 months. But this orchard is a little bit of a different story. I've lived in this state for 3 years now, and I lived about an hour and a half away, and I was working, and I would come up here on the weekends, and during that time I was pretty much planting everything in this orchard, or most of the things that are in this orchard currently, and they've really matured over the past couple years. And I planted a bunch of stuff this year, but this thing is a few years old. And I was actually just looking at a video earlier from some recordings that we had of when I was first planting everything in here back in 2020, and it was just completely empty. And that really, like, that's when it really sunk in, like how far we've come and how much we actually have going on here now. But we have 5 rows of fruit trees, mostly apples, but we have a few plum trees in here, some cherries, and we have some grapes trellis, some honeyberries, a lot of blueberries kind of mixed in here, and some currants, some lingonberries, and I planted a few more apple trees in the middle. And there's this mobile chicken coop in the middle of this orchard. This is where I kind of was putting our last batch of chickens in. After they're out of the brooder, I brought them out here, but now they're all in with the regular chickens or the older chickens that I have, so they're all sharing that coop and the chicken run area, and I kind of all let them into the orchard every now and then to kind of clean up the bugs. But one new thing in this orchard is my raspberry patch, and it's not really new, but it's kind of improved. So these raspberries, I planted them in 2020, early 2020, and in the past 2 years, they have just completely taken over the area. When I planted them, they were just like they were like a foot tall, and I was just kept thinking that I had time to build a trellis, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off, and before I knew it, they were just everywhere back here, and they were giant canes, and they just kind of taken over everything. So I let them go this year. I harvested all I could, but now that the season's winding down, I got in here, cleaned them all up. I had to prune a huge pile of them off, which sucks, but I think in the long run, they're gonna be a lot better when they're more contained in this trellis area. Not only did I prune everything back and kind of get a trellis of logs put on here, I also transplanted a bunch of the primocanes into another area behind my greenhouse. So I kind of created a whole new raspberry patch back here, and I'm gonna let them take over this area too. Put another trellis up on the other side, and then just kind of let them fill in all of this space back here, because before we didn't really have anything back here. We planted an apple tree behind my greenhouse a couple years ago, but that died. I have all these raspberries, and I have these grapes. I have this 2-year-old King of the North grape arbors that we got a lot of grapes off of this year, and I have these Concord grapes that I just planted this year, and I want to build an arbor for this very soon, because I don't want to keep planting stuff and just keep putting off the trellis. I want to build a trellis when I plant something, so I don't have to worry about that and let it get out of control later. I'm trying to learn my lesson from the raspberries. The only thing that's really left in the orchard is this hoop house that we have and my potato mound. So the potato mound next to the hoop house here, all the potatoes are gone, or done for the year. We got a lot of potatoes. I'm gonna be making another potato mound in my garden because I had to plant these way too close together because it wasn't as big as I was thinking it was. So I'm gonna make another one, and next year we're gonna have twice the potatoes, hopefully. In the greenhouse, there's peppers and tomatoes and a couple eggplants in the back there. All the peppers, I got a decent amount of peppers in here this year. I put too many hot peppers in here. That's something I'm learning that I don't really like. I thought I loved spicy food, but something straight off the plant like that, I couldn't even function when I took a bite of it. So I don't really know what to do with those. Next year, I'm just gonna stick with bell peppers. I love bell peppers. I wanna start making salsa with the onions and tomatoes that I have. So next year, this whole thing's probably gonna be bell peppers. So the last thing I wanna show you at our house here is this pole barn. We pretty much just finished this up. It took a few months of building on the weekends with some of our family friends who are contractors. They came over, and those 2 guys and me kind of put this thing together, and it took a while, but it's done now. I'm really glad it's done. We're getting all the stuff kind of piled in here, kind of cleaning all this stuff up. It was crazy here for a while. Like, we didn't have a place to put anything like this whole summer. So now that this is done, we're getting this place organized and cleaned up, and it's looking a lot better. Yeah, we have all of our lumber stacked in there, some places to build on a level ground, which is really nice because we're on a hill here. But all right, that's about it for the house up here. I'm gonna take you over to our blueberry patch, and I'll show you my meat birds that I have over there. Okay, I'm in my blueberry patch now, which is where my meat birds are pasturing. I have over 70 blueberries planted in here. They were all planted this year. So this is another area where it was just an empty clearing 6 months ago, and now it has a bunch of blueberries in here and my meat birds. The meat birds have worked out really well this year. I've kind of used them instead of mowing. I kind of come over and move them through onto fresh grass and put a little fence around all my blueberry bushes, and they eat all the grass, fertilize all the soil, eat some bugs, feed themselves a little bit, and it's working out really nicely so far. The only downside is I've lost a lot of birds to hawks this year. We were originally going to buy all the chicken butchering equipment and butcher them ourselves, but we decided to take these into a shop and get them processed. We're probably going to do that going forward. We don't even know if we're going to get meat birds again, but we've actually been feeding them the food scraps that I told you about earlier that we get from our local grocery store. I've been giving them to the meat birds. It's really cut down on our feed bill. We might do something with that next year where we like just try to feed them with food scraps, see how much we can cut down on the food bill, maybe even not have a feed bill once they're, you know, a couple weeks old, but we'll see. But I'm really excited for all these blueberries. Like I said, I planted over 70 in here this year, and they all seem to be doing really well. I think these chickens kind of coming through and keeping the grass off of them these past few months, or these past couple months, really helped them a lot. And I'm spreading wood chips in behind the chickens the best I can, and I want to get this whole area covered with wood chips eventually to really build the soil and not have to come over here and mow constantly or have to run animals through here to eat the grass. But yeah, we don't know what we're going to end up doing with the meat birds. I get most of my meat right now through hunting, which is why I'm in camo right now. Hunting season started a few weeks back and it's starting to cool down, and with the garden wrapping up, I have some time to get out into the woods now. If you want to see all my hunting content, I'm putting it on Patreon. It's $5 a month. It sucks I have to put it behind a paywall. I just want to freely document my hunting. Like, I love hunting, and our woods has a lot of deer in here. That's how I get a majority of my meat currently. I just want to be able to film that and do it completely freely, not have to worry about YouTube guidelines and regulation and all that stuff, like with the algorithm. I just don't want to deal with it. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I'm going to be posting all my hunting content on there. I filmed a couple hunts and I'm kind of getting used to all that, but it's really fun actually. So all that's on Patreon. Link will be in the video description below. But yeah, so the meat birds are all fed for the night, so I'm gonna go get into the woods here and see what I can see the rest of the night. And I just hit 1,000 subscribers, so I wanted to take a second out of one of my videos to thank all of you who have subscribed and have been supporting me so far. It truly means the world to me. I don't take enough time to thank you enough, but the fact that you're watching my videos when you could literally be watching anything else in the world, like, that's not lost on me. I'm extremely grateful, and I can't do any of this without you, so thank you.